Welcome to Gutter Trash episode 215. Invisiblies. My name is Eric.
I'm Jason. Perfect. Nailed it that time.
Some people may pronounce it Invisibles.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
In the past.
I like to go by its French name.
Oh, Invisiblies.
Invisiblies.
Is that really French for invisible?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I do not know any other language other than English, and I barely have a grasp on that.
I know of enough phrases to get me in trouble in French, but I don't know anything about...
What kind of trouble?
I can ask young ladies if they would like to have drinks at my apartment.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But then they say no because you live at home with your mom.
Yeah, and I don't know how to pronounce Virgo comics from the 90s. Yeah, those are just date faux pas in France. Actually, I bet that's a lot more accepted, like living with your parents in just about any country other than America, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah. But my comeback would always be, but I also live with my doogie, come back!
I think they would run away still. Mostly out of jealousy.
Oh, yeah.
Because not everybody has a doogie.
Not hardly anyone.
Yeah.
Just me and my mom.
Pretty rare.
Yeah. You might say Uma and Goo both have a doogie as well, but
right.
Yeah, just pretty much me and my mom. That's it.
How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well this late Monday evening.
It is slightly later than I originally intended.
Yeah. It happens.
It happens.
We had to save the world. We're superheroes.
We did. I don't think we actually did.
No.
But we made an attempt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Someone called. Someone was in trouble.
Yeah.
We ran.
We went to the rescue.
Yeah. And then we got snacks.
Yep. Just like Superman does.
He's got it, right?
Yeah.
He's like, you see him like sitting on a steel girder, just like chomping away on some Chex Mix after he saved a busload of, whatevers. I don't know where it was. Oh yeah, criminal.
We saved a busload of criminals.
Yeah, well, they're people too.
Yeah. So yeah, let's do this.
Invisibles?
The Invisibles.
Say you want a revolution.
Volume 1.
Yeah.
Or whatever, I don't know.
First 8 issues.
Yes, that's what I read.
Yeah.
Individual issues.
I read the trade paperback because I couldn't be bothered with trying to find the single issues in my collection.
You have them all neatly organized in a Grant Morrison pile?
I know exactly. I could walk over to the pile of boxes and scan down them with my finger and point to which one it is, but it is under so much other stuff that I went out and bought the trade paperback instead.
Alrighty.
I had store credit, and I bought it at Mavericks, so I figured whatever.
In the corner of my bedroom, on top of my empty guitar case, next to my bed, I have what I would gather to be a 3.5 foot tall pile of just Grant Morrison comics.
Wow. That's pretty impressive.
And I only have the individual issues of The Invisibles, and they were all at the bottom. So thank you, Jason.
That must have been fun. You should have just went out and bought the trade paperback. Of course, there was only one at your local comic shop. So. And I bought it.
Bell Book and Comic?
Yeah, that's the one. Actually, he's probably got like 3 copies because they're a real store.
Only just barely. There's still a magic shop more than anything else.
Yeah, but it pains me to say it, but they're probably more of a comic shop than Mavericks is at this point.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I've seen their back room. It's amazing.
I know, right? Isn't it? Oh my gosh, I bought so many Rob Liefeld books out of their back room for $1 each. He told me $1 each, anything I could find. But I did not see any Invisibles back issues because I wasn't looking.
Right. Well, it's because you own them all.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. Yeah, they're right there under everything else that I own.
So you picked this book. The collection contains the first 8 issues of The Invisibles. I had to dig through a mountain of other Grant Morrison books to get to it. There's no way in hell that I was going to go through all that effort and only just read the first 8 issues.
Right.
No, granted, I haven't read much farther beyond that by this point, but I did used to read the entire series about once a year.
Wow.
It has been more than a few years since I've done that, and because you have forced me, I am now back in the swing of rereading the entire run of the Invisibles.
Nice. And that gets like a longer project every year that you did it, I'm sure, back then. Unless you did it unless you started after the whole thing was over.
I did it after the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although when as it was wrapping up, because by the time I started actually buying it on a monthly basis, on a monthly basis, like it was towards the end of the first volume.
Okay.
And so then I think there was like a break between that and volume 2. And so I reread all of volume 1 and then picked up with volume 2 when the first issue came out. Then the volume 2 ended and there was a break between that and volume 3. So I reread all of volume 1 and all of volume 2 before volume 3 came out.
Man.
And then I reread the entire thing once the final issue came out.
Man, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I've only ever read them once until this week.
Right. The times that I just described was mostly just so I could remember what the hell was happening.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on.
Yeah. Yeah, there is.
Yeah, like even in the first 8, where this just kind of introduces you to the main characters, very quickly you realize there's a lot of references and a lot. It's like multi-layered, and
this may be one of the most dense comics I've ever read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yeah. That was the review.
That was my sentence I had to say. You're awful. Oh, we can't review this book.
What?
We can't.
Yeah,
we're
sure
not
we can.
Smart. We're not smart enough to do this.
Clearly not. But we're going to do it anyway.
I love this book.
It's really, really awesome.
This is my favorite comic.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's high praise.
I've never read any other series as many times as I've read this one. Maybe Preacher or Transmetropolitan comes close. I've read those maybe 2 or 3 times total. But this one, like I said, I read at least once a year. So I've read it all the way through, all 70-some issues or whatever combined.
Wow.
Actually, there's probably not 70 issues.
That's pretty close, because wasn't there 2 25 issues and a 12 issue?
Yeah, something like that.
62, I guess.
Yeah.
The new 62.
Ooh. But yeah, so I've probably read this series at least 6 times. And now starting my 7th, if that is a correct number.
Nice. Wow. Yeah, it's... I don't know if it's my favorite Grant Morrison book or not. I'd have to reread Doom Patrols, and I can't do that for another year and a half. But it's
Explain it.
in March of 2004, Joe G, our buddy and your co-host on Farscape Night, what's it called?
The
Viewmaster. He was at Mavericks, and he was talking about how he'd never read Doom Patrol, and he was a Grant Morrison fan. I was like, really? I was like, I'll bring him my comics, and he's like, it'd probably take me a long time to read them, and there's so many of them, and he was like making excuses, and I was not having it. I was like, everybody needs to read this. So I was like, okay, look, I'll bring them in tomorrow, and don't bring them back until 10 years from today. I don't want to see them. You have 10 years to read it. Is that enough time? And he was like, okay. So, like, me and him both signed this card, and we had 2 witnesses sign it, that he borrowed my Doom Patrol collection for 10 years. And, next year, on March, it will be 10 years. So,
he still has not read them.
Still has not even started them.
Nope.
Yeah. So I have to wait till then.
Because he recently told me that he finished reading the entire run of Starman, which is about 80 issues.
Yeah.
I believe Doom Patrol, Grant Morrison's run on that is only about 40 issues or so.
Yeah, because he started at number 19 or something.
Yeah, and I think 63 was the last issue
That's
he
when
wrote.
Rachel Pollack took over, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, he can do it.
Yeah.
You got just over a year, Mr. G.
Yep. Good luck to you.
I'm taking them back, too. Like, if you're not finished. Oh, yeah. You have to buy those trades yourself.
And he is a fool if he doesn't, because they're great.
They're amazing.
Much like The Invisibles.
Yes.
Which you should also read.
We should have been talking about that one instead. I'm sorry.
No. This is all about the celebration of Grant Morrison.
Yeah.
And finally reading a good book of his.
Oh.
That's harsh.
I have to admit, he's probably my favorite comic writer ever, but I don't really enjoy his superhero books like I used to. Like, I loved his run on JLA, right. and I really, really liked his new X-Men, but I've tried to read his Batman, I've tried to read his Action Comics. I loved All-Star Superman, of course.
Right.
But recently, I haven't, I think the last 3-4 years, I haven't really enjoyed his superhero stuff that I've read.
I think his action stuff, I think it's fun, but it's definitely nowhere near as good as anything else he's ever written. His Batman stuff, I think, is one of those things that, like his Doom Patrol, I think, like, further down the line is going to be one of those things where people realize, oh, what a thing he did.
Yeah.
I really do.
Okay.
I think it's something that, like, he's been working on for, like, the past 6 years, and, like, he's had to, like, for a while he had his little free reign, but now he doesn't anymore.
Right.
And so now he's, I think, just struggling to try to tie up everything that he was trying to do earlier.
Yeah.
But I think, like, as a complete, Grant Morrison wrote these kind of thing, I think it's going to be a future classic.
That's awesome.
I think so. Because I really enjoy it, but I will admit that it took me, like, reading almost the entire run, like his first run, to, like, get it.
Okay.
Like, before I was just enjoying them, but then after, like, I read, like, a huge chunk of them and together, like, I was like, oh, okay.
Well, I haven't read a huge chunk of either one of those. I read, like, the first 4 or 5 action, and I read the first few of his Batman, like the Batman and Son trade. But yeah, I couldn't get into it. Like,
they definitely don't start off as strong as some of his other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, like, stuff like All-Star Superman is just fucking brilliant.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And like it's one of those things where, like, he's never gonna top that, I don't think.
Right.
There's just, like, certain things that he has written that I don't think is ever, like, no matter what he does, he will never be able to just touch, the level that he did. And oddly, the 3 that popped into my head were all drawn by Frank Quitely.
Huh.
All-Star Superman,
You're right.
Flex Mentallo, and We 3.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, We 3's really good, too. And that's what I'm more excited about. I hope he does more Like, he's doing Happy right now, and I hope when he's ties up all his loose ends at Batman, he just does a lot more just bizarre from his mind creations.
I think that's his plan anyway. His run on Batman is up. I think like the Batman Inc. Like 12 or 13,
I think
something like
13 is what I heard. Yeah.
His Action Comic run is up with issue 16, and then I think he's got like 2 other projects that are like completely written but still like being worked on like by the artists for DC.
Okay.
I think one of them is Wonder Woman, like Earth One, and then the other one is like some book he's been talking about forever called Multiversity, which is like his big sort of like almost Seven Soldiers type story.
Okay.
With like a whole bunch of different artists and a whole bunch of characters, including a Frank Quietly drawn one.
Ooh.
About the Charlton characters who inspired the Watchmen.
Oh wow!
So
that sounds awesome.
Yeah. So I think once he does that, I think he's just focusing solely on like creator-owned stuff, and just maybe like another Sea Guy or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
So and Sea Guy is great too. And of course, like all the other projects that he always announced but never finished, like his novel and movies and
yeah. Did I mention last episode that Grant Morrison is the reason I started working at Mavericks?
No.
When I was 14, my brother, who's 5 years older than me, had a high school classmate who was a super comics nerd, but he liked, he loved superheroes, but he also loved like bizarre stuff. And he loaned me like a handful of the Doom Patrol run. He was like, I think you would really like this because, I don't know, I liked odd stuff,
Right.
And I was just like blown away at how awesome Doom Patrol was. And I had no money because I was 14. And I was like, I should get a job at that comic shop that my brother used to work at. and that way I could afford them and I could just buy them right there. So that's the reason I started working at Mavericks, was so I could read Doom Patrol.
Nice.
I can own them and read all the rest of them.
Which Joe now has.
Yeah. Yeah, which he knows.
Actually, I think because we've reviewed 2 other Grant Morrison books.
We did All-Star and Joe the Barbarian.
Joe the Barbarian. Okay, so I'm sure we've had this exact same conversation about Grant Morrison.
Probably, yeah.
Multiple times now. But The Invisibles.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we should talk about the book that we've reviewed.
Probably. I don't think we can review this. It is a book that obviously holds like a special place for me.
Right.
Like I honestly, it is one of my favorite comics of all time.
Yeah.
And just reading, like obviously, like I came into the book late, towards the end of the first volume, and then it was sort of like right when Grant Morrison's like popularity was sort of peaking.
Yeah.
Like near, like around the JLA and stuff like that. So I read this book, like I bought all the back issues of Volume 1 and continued to buy it and read it in like that big chunk. And at the time I was 16, 17?
Yeah,
18,
I
maybe?
think it started in like 95, and then 97 or something.
I don't think I may have been a senior in high school. I can't remember exactly. You're in high school and then you're from Ohio and you read something like this and it kind of fucks with you a little bit. And it's all about rebellion and revolution and like changing the world and idealism,
And drugs.
And drugs, yeah. Although, that part never won me over, obviously.
Right.
But it inspired sort of that, like, little punk inside of me, that's like, I'm gonna, change the world through my art, and,
Right.
I'm gonna, study a whole bunch and then, like, learn shit and, like, learn how to, just affect change throughout life,
Right.
and now I'm a sad 34-year-old, lazy, lethargic cog in the military-industrial complex, and perfectly, sadly content with that. Obviously, like any of the rebellious thoughts that the Invisibles helped, sort of not kick into gear, but at least helped accelerate, in my brain,
Right.
have all died.
Right.
I realize what life is now and fully accept it, and I'm just sitting out my days waiting to die. But I gotta say, rereading this for the first time in, like, probably 6 years or so, like it kind of, like I felt the flicker
Yeah.
for a little bit.
Yeah. A
Yeah.
little life left in
A
there.
little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Inside of your iron heart.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's like it has that same. I mean, because like it focuses on Dane. Is that his name? Dane McGowan. He's like the new recruit for this, group of sort of.
Terrorists.
Yeah, they're kind of like revolutionary terrorists, like, but they're also kind of like Grant Morrison's weird, like, drug-addled mod version of superheroes.
Yeah.
Because they're fighting against these dark forces who want to, like, suck the life out of the universe, basically.
Right.
But they're also, like, transvestites and, like, drug users and partiers and,
fetishists.
Yeah. But, yeah, like, Dane, you get the perspective of this teenager, and it is kind of like one of those, he just seems like one of those kids that just read Clockwork Orange for the first time or something.
Right, yeah.
And then, like, he's throwing Molotov cocktails at, like, police cars or whatever and stealing cars. So, yeah, like, it was weird to read that as a teenager and reread it now because, yeah, when I was a teenager, it's like, yeah, awesome, And then now I'm reading it, I'm like, I have a different perspective. Like, I still think, yeah, awesome, go for it. But
at the same time, you have responsibilities and bills.
Right.
And
Yeah, exactly. It's a little different, yeah. But yeah, what a great book. I will say though, it started out like after I read the first couple issues of this, I was like, this isn't as good as I remembered.
Yeah.
And I was like, I hope it gets a little bit better. And by the end of the trade, I think it really feels more like what I remember loving about the Invisibles.
Right.
Because it has a kind of slow beginning, like there's
It's all set up.
Yeah, there's a lot of setup.
The first 4 issues. Well, the first issue, I think, has a little bit of that. I think it's a good balance between what, the middle chunk of this story is and then, like, what the ending of the story is. It's, like, a good balance of that.
Right.
Where it's got its weirdness and its action, but, character building at the same time.
Yeah.
But then issues like 2 through 4 are just all set up.
It's basically just Dane walking around with an old homeless man talking about how fucked up reality is.
Right. And it's all important.
Yeah.
Like all the information, basically like the entire series is laid out in those 3 issues.
Right.
But it's a lot of talky.
Yeah, it does feel a little like it drags on. And even once the other characters are introduced, like around issue 5 and 6, like I was like, well, this is all right, but man, I remember fucking loving this book.
Right.
But I think the last issues in the trade, like 7 and 8, like made me go, oh yeah, this is fucking awesome, and I'm definitely gonna reread the whole thing.
I think because even like when I came into it, like I read like issues 1 through 20 in like a chunk, the very first time. And so I was able to just, like, get through all of it and get through, to, like, the awesome parts.
Right.
But I think, Because I remember reading, because in the individual issues, like all the letters pages, remember those kids?
Oh, yeah. People wrote letters.
Yeah.
You just, like, type it on your computer and hit send.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And they would publish them in the comic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes, like this one, the writer of the comic would answer those letters.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. But Grant Morrison, like answered the letter columns, and sometimes he would have, like, little essays that he would write, too. But I remember like, further, like, around issue 17, 18, something like that, talking about how basically this book was on the verge of cancellation.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And he said basically it was the second story arc, which is issues like 5 through 8, which is the last half of this trade, that basically it was him, and I love that story, because the first half of the story of this graphic novel, trade,
right.
This trade paperback is, like the introduction of Dane, like, into this world of the Invisibles. And then, like, the second half of the story is him, like, on his first mission, where they, ghostly time travel back to, France during the French Revolution, so that they can rescue the ghost of the Marquis de Sade and bring him back to the present so that they can figure out a blueprint to recreate the world, so that, everybody gets what they want. And meanwhile, they get lost in time, and there's, like, a weird, crazy Brazilian assassin after them. And basically he said that because of that, because it was such a weird, and there's, like, Percy Shelley and Lord Byron and
the severed head of John the Baptist.
Right, like all involved in, like, this last, the 4 issues. He said because it was so weird and so dense and so, like, it was him trying to be, like, as experimental with it as he could, that it just lost every reader that he gained when, like, the first issue came out.
Right.
Because, like, nobody wanted to, like, stick around and read weird esoteric, time-traveling historical comics.
And
Which
shame
it's
on
not.
And shame on you for not.
Yeah, because stick through it, and it's fucking great.
Yeah.
And I will admit, like, the very first time, like, I didn't like that story either. But, like, by now, I love it.
Yeah.
Because it is so weird and bizarre and just everything.
Oh, yeah, there's so much
it.
going on, yeah.
Like, the fact that they lived through the 120 days of Sodom.
Yeah.
I mean, it's... There's so much stuff happening in this book, like in those last 4 issues at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, he said he blamed the lack of sales on that storyline, that people just bailed and did not come back.
It was tanking.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, of course, he initiated the magic ritual to get the sales back up by the Thanksgiving Day masturbation.
Yep.
Grant Morrison.
That's him. Yeah. He wanted everyone to help take part in this massive spell he was casting by masturbating at a certain time. Yeah, moms and dads, that's the guy that writes the Superman comics your kids are reading right now.
Oh, kids aren't reading those.
No, not at all. They're playing Pokemon and fingering each other.
Yeah. Probably both at the same time.
Yeah, it's one of the moves in Pokemon. Mm-hmm. Instead of tapping the card, you just finger bang your opponent.
Yeah.
Man.
I just love this book so much, and rereading it, like, I was, because it had been, like, more than a couple of years since I read it, like, there was that little bit of fear that I had that was like, am I just delusional? Like, that I ever liked this? Is this gonna really suck?
I was a teenager the last time I read any of this. So yeah, I was a little afraid. And I was just talking about how, like, the last few issues were were great, and I was, like, a little, like, disappointed this time around with the beginning of it. I will say, because I read them individually, and I was a teenager, and it didn't seem boring to me then.
Right.
So I'm guessing that, and I don't know, boring is the wrong word. It didn't grab me like I remembered it grabbing me.
Right.
But I think that's probably more because, it wasn't boring or anything. It's just maybe I've just read so many books since then,
Right.
that are along the same lines or inspired by or whatever, that maybe like it wasn't as exciting this time around, but
Well, it's because you really love The Matrix.
I love the Matrix. Yeah, the Matrix. I feel like the Matrix. Maybe you should see where half the ideas came from. I think this and Ghost in the Shell pretty much was the Matrix.
I can't remember. Did Grant Morrison ever try to sue the Wachowskis over this?
I know he kind of said something about it in the letters column, like, "Wow, I just saw the Matrix."
Yeah.
Huh. But I don't think he really. Yeah, I don't think he sued or anything.
Yeah. But I think, I don't think this was the first book that ever did anything like it. The whole sort of exploring, the reality beneath, the world, that sort of thing. But it does, really seem like that after this book came out, that, it seemed to be a recurring theme in a lot of movies and TV and sci-fi and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of writers read it. I mean, it seems that, this is one of those things that, it is heady enough that I bet a lot of writers do read this. It's like, I don't know. It's like one of those bands like Tool or Faith No More who every musician listens to.
Right.
I'm sure this is one of those books that every writer read in the 90s.
Yeah.
But it's not like, that's not to say that it's not for just everybody that likes. There's a lot of references, and a lot of those I don't even get.
I don't get it.
But
I have the fucking the guidebook thing. That has all the annotations and everything.
Yeah, there's a book released. What is it called?
Anarchy for the Masses.
Yeah. And it basically dissects the whole thing and maps out all the references and inspirations and whatever. And I almost think that takes away a little bit because,
it does.
Because, there's stuff in here. There's a lot of pop culture things in Invisibles because it is all about, conspiracies and time travel and towards the end of the book, there's a girl at a party who says the world's going to end on December 22nd, 2012. And obviously that didn't happen. So, a lot of references are just more about, the things that people talk about in pop culture, and it's not a truth of the story that is obviously, essential. You don't have to get all those. I didn't get all those references, and I fucking love this book. Yeah,
I didn't either. Like I said, I have that book, and I honestly did try to read it, but you're right, it totally takes away a lot of the joy that I had in the book by figuring that stuff out.
Yeah, I never read that. I think I bought it too, and I never read it.
Yeah. It's even on this, before we did this, I thought, okay, well, I'll read the first 8 issues, and then maybe I'll read, the corresponding, chapters of that book, just to get more of a feel. And, I got through, half of the first one, and I was like, this is just kind of ruining it for me.
Yeah. It's almost, tedious.
Yeah.
It's like seeing the man behind the curtain sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes
there are interesting things in that book, though, interviews with Grant Morrison or Stuart Moore, the artists. And I found those interesting, more about the craft of just, putting this book together.
Right.
And a little bit of Grant Morrison's thought process behind, what he was writing. That part is interesting.
Okay.
But just the whole, panel by panel, this references the thing that happened.
Yeah, this sign hanging on the front of the store in the background says this, and it means this because
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because honestly, the most interesting thing about that book is towards the end, with the last volume. I guess there was 3 issues that were drawn by somebody, and they just barely followed Grant Morrison's script at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so, the individual issues are just, they don't make sense because they weren't drawn the way he intended. And so I guess in the trades for those books, like, someone else redrew those pages.
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Wow, I wonder what artist it was, and that must have pissed him off. Because...
Ashley Wood.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't even remember Ashley Wood working on the Invisibles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely towards like the last like 4 issues or so. Yeah,
that must have pissed him off because this was like his baby.
Oh
like,
yeah. I mean, like I said, someone else redrew it for the trade.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Man. I'll have to get that trade.
Yeah, me too.
When I get that far, I'm gonna dig out my actual issues and read the rest of it.
Yeah.
Because it's funny. The only reason I even picked this to begin with is there's a guy at the art studio I work at who's very into conspiracy theories, and he's like studies them online and talks about a lot of the things that I remember themes that were touched on in the Invisibles.
Yeah.
And he's not really a comic reader. He's probably in his late 40s, but he's never really read them. And I said, hey, you got to read the Invisibles sometime. I was telling him about it, and he's like, oh, that sounds interesting. And then I just bought the trade from Mavericks. I was like, well, I'll just buy the trade. I know Kathleen wants to read it, so I'll loan it to him. I'll loan it to her.
Yeah.
And then so I wanted to read it first before I loaned it to him. That way, if he wanted to talk about it, I could at least have read it in the last 2 decades.
Right.
And so I read it, and I still haven't loaned it to him. Like, I went to work today, and I didn't take it to him because I don't think he's gonna like it.
Okay.
Because like, he's really into that whole conspiracy theory thing, but he's kind of got more of a like a very loving, like, hippie kind of slant to his view of things.
Right.
And I think this is way too dark that he just
it
wouldn't really connect with the things that makes him like those kinds of things.
I think, though, it's one of those things where I think this is a book that would pay off for him. In the long run?
I really think so too.
Like if he's stuck with it through the whole way, because it eventually does turn into that.
Yeah.
Especially like in the last volume of it. But yeah, I think you're totally right. This sampling of it.
Right. I mean, there's just like, I just remember like as I was reading it, like 3 or 4 panels throughout the series, throughout the first 8 issues, just hit me like, oh, that guy just threw his excrement into that girl's face. And I was just like, Bruce is not gonna like this. But yeah, I want him to read it because I really think, yeah, like you said, as it goes, he would love it, and you do sort of need to read it from the beginning,
right?
But I don't know. Maybe I'll just warn him and then loan it to him and see what he says.
Yeah.
Like, if it gets a little dark, buddy.
Yeah. Well, it starts out pretty dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it starts out with this nice scene with King Mob just talking to a guy like in Egypt or somewhere, and
right.
You're like, oh, it's creepy and mysterious, and then yeah, it's just like expletives and explosions and people trying to rape each other.
But there is that scene of John Lennon and
oh yeah, that's kind of adorable.
Yeah.
Who was the other guy? Was that George?
No, that was Pete Best.
Oh, that's right. He was quitting the band.
The other guy,
Stewart.
Stewart.
Who was it? Who was that?
The other guy in the Beatles that didn't make it.
Eddie Money. That's who it was.
You know why he didn't make it? He had 2 tickets.
Oh, where'd he go?
To Paradise.
Oh, wow. Oh, man. Man. Yeah, every panel I'm looking at, there's a guy saying John, but I don't see the other guy.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
That's not the only John Lennon scene in the book either.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and this isn't the only one in the series, I don't believe.
Oh, I can't remember.
I feel like there's more John Lennon later.
Yeah, there might be.
And more, like, acid trips.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, I'll put that out there. I've never done any sort of hallucinogen,
right.
And I don't plan to ever do one, but this series does sort of, like, it's sort of like there's a little pinprick in me that goes, I should try shrooms or something.
I don't think it's a secret. I have long wanted to try hallucinogenics, and just have never had the opportunity. It is the one drug that I absolutely want to do.
Right.
Mushrooms, or maybe not LSD, but definitely mushrooms.
Right. I get mushrooms on my pizza sometimes.
I do too.
It never really does anything for me.
No, makes me burp a lot.
Yeah,
but it's probably mostly the garlic.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe that's some sort of psychic time travel every time you.
Oh, yeah, could be.
It is Stu. Yeah, he calls the guy Stu.
There you go. Whoever Stu was.
Yeah.
We're not smart, and I'm not a huge Beatles fan.
I like the Beatles. I
mean, I don't have anything against the Beatles,
no.
but I'm also I think they're highly overrated.
I don't currently own any of their music. Actually, that's not true. I sold years ago the Beatles CDs I have, but very recently Jack, the owner of Mavericks, gave me a stack of Beatles 45s, and I listened to a bunch of them. The night before I got my 12-day flu.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember listening to them that night, and the next day I woke up and I felt like horrible.
Because of the Beatles.
It could have been the Beatles.
Yeah. No, yeah, I always go back to Quentin Tarantino. There's a deleted scene in Pulp Fiction where John Travolta is or Uma Thurman, I think, has the little video camera, and she's taping John Travolta.
Right.
And she she basically says there's two types of people in the world. There's Elvis people and there's Beatles people. And she's trying to figure out who John Travolta is. Obviously, he's Elvis.
Right.
But I was man, I hate Elvis and I don't like the Beatles. So I guess if I had to pick, gun to my head under the threat of death, I'm a Beatles guy.
Yeah.
But I don't care about the Beatles. I forget what it was, but a couple years ago, my friends and I found this video online, some shitty song. And, there's a line in it, the Beatles are just a band. That is the most true statement in the face of the earth.
Yeah. I guess overrated does apply, but at the same time, I think they just hit the right time with the right ideas, and they did pretty much change rock and roll, but I think whoever showed up at that time
would have done
with those ideas, yeah. And John Lennon, I do think it was an awesome guy because, of just how, kind of peaceful and free thinking and forward thinking he was, but
apparently also a major asshole.
Yeah. I know he, cheated on Yoko and, some things, but it seems he seems like he was a pretty good dad and a pretty good,
We don't know. We don't know anything about him other than his music.
I've seen interviews with Yoko and his sons, and it comes across like he was a good family man, but I don't think he was Jesus Christ or anything.
I'm willing to believe that he was not a good person. But the thing with even Ringo, all the Beatles, they're talented. They're good at what they do. Mm-hmm. I don't hate their body of work, obviously.
Right.
Just if a Beatles song comes on, I don't immediately turn it off. I'm just fuck the Beatles.
Unless it's Revolution Number 9.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't. I'm not. I couldn't ever call myself a fan of the Beatles.
Right.
Yeah. They just exist, and I am okay with them.
That's fair.
Whereas Elvis, I will turn right the fuck off.
Really, I love Elvis, but only certain songs. I love his Christmas stuff. Oh man,
I love In the Ghetto.
Yeah, In the Ghetto is amazing. Hey, he was all right. Elvis is cool.
But Elvis is not in this book. Because Grant Morrison hates him too.
Does he?
I don't know. Yeah. I'm sure he does. Right?
I don't know. He's so poppy and magical. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's strictly into the mod scene.
Yeah. It's definitely his bag.
Yeah.
What else can you say?
I don't know. I love this book.
It just spirals and builds and it's got a little sense of humor to it, but dark and like,
This book has pretty much everything in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the one thing with Grant Morrison is that like a lot of the themes and things that he writes about in this book, he's actually like crossed over into his other works.
Yeah.
You know, like you can read the Doom Patrol and like see little bits of like the building blocks of the Invisibles in that.
Oh yeah,
and
for sure.
Read
with the villains and things like that, right?
And you can read like even his JLA stuff and like see like direct correlations to like what he was writing in the Invisibles at the same time. And that's the fucking JLA.
Yeah, which couldn't have been more different from this,
right? Yeah. I mean,
even though it's a group of people trying to save the world from baddies.
Yeah. But and even though he was sadly completely wrong about the whole December 22nd thing, that was a recurring theme throughout like all of the books that he wrote, like in the early or late 90s, early 2000s, even in New X-Men.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I don't remember.
He set up the whole, and then when he started New X-Men, like the very first issue, he set up that, basically the the human race was going to completely die out by December 22nd, 2012, and, everybody on Earth would be mutants.
Oh, that was the date?
Yep.
Okay, I don't even remember. I don't think
he ever specifically said the date, but it was like, whatever amount of years it was from that point. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then Marvel reversed that whole thing anyway as soon as he left, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, he got his like little chunk of it though.
Exactly.
If you read his stuff, it's like a little microcosm.
See, that's the thing about comics is that no matter what happens afterwards, you can still go back and read the old ones.
Yeah.
People.
Continuity doesn't exist, even if they try to make it.
Exactly. So you can say that Dan Slott is ruining Spider-Man all you want. Those issues of Spider-Man that you did love, they're still there.
Yeah.
Go get them.
Yeah.
Go reread them.
Yeah.
Comics.
I like comics.
I do. And I like this one probably the best of all.
That's high praise.
Yeah.
What else can you say?
The one thing that it has going against it is inconsistent art.
Yeah. It's been a lot of different artists.
Yeah. And I can get, like, I guess his whole thing was he wanted to do sort of like a Sandman type of thing with the rotating, artists on each new storyline, stuff like that. But I was not a fan of a lot of them. The guy who starts out this story, the first 4 issues are Steve Yowell. Yowell?
Yeah, Yowell. I don't know.
Not a huge fan of his work.
He's all right.
He's fine, but he's definitely nothing that I ever really want to seek out or anything like that.
I like Jill Thompson.
I like Jill Thompson now.
Mm-hmm.
I do not like her work in this book.
Really?
Yeah. I like the stuff that she's been doing like in the past like 5-6 years or so, which is all like watercolory, painter kind of stuff. And I think maybe the problem is that like, because this all came out in like the early 90s, that it still has that, like, even though it's a Vertigo book and it's creator owned and it's weird and all that, like there's still, I think, that sort of mentality of like everything has to be Image.
Yeah.
And so there's like just a lot of unnecessary cross hatching.
Yeah, I do remember some of that in there.
Yeah. So I think Jill Thompson is a fine artist now. I do not like her work throughout this series because she returns a couple of different times, and so does Steve Yowell. But like, there were other artists who worked on the book that I thought were really good, like Chris Weston and Phil Jimenez. Frank Quitely, I think, did part of an issue once.
Towards the end.
Yeah. The first volume, I think, was covers done by Sean Phillips.
Yeah. Which, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And, the cover of number 5, I think that's the first variant cover I almost bought. I still didn't buy it, but I was tempted to buy all of them because it's basically just like a cardstock cover. And
it's not even that. It's just... it's like paper bag, like what you get like at the grocery store.
and they had like different like revolutionary slogans
Yeah.
on the covers. And I forget which one I bought, but yeah.
Yeah, I think the one that I have is whatever the most common one was. So yeah, I did not get a variant of that one. Yeah. But it's probably the best variant I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah. Except for that Magnolia Detective cover, that was pretty fucking
Oh,
awesome.
anything that Mignola does is going to trump everything else.
Yeah.
If Mike Mignola had drawn the Invisibles, I think my brain would just explode.
Yeah, wouldn't that be sweet? That would be sweet. That would be very sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, the Invisibles, love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna continue with this.
I already have. I think I'm like on issue 10 or 11 by now. I just read the very first Chris Weston issue that he drew,
Awesome.
featuring the Haitian voodoo character Jim Crow.
Oh yeah, that was great. Yeah.
I think the next storyline. Well, I think the next issue after that is. Honestly, I think it's if I'm remembering correctly, it is my favorite issue out of like this entire series.
Really?
And it's about one of the guys who gets killed in the first issue. He's just like a random soldier who
The single issue story.
yeah.
You know, funny thing about that, when this series was going on, I was here's me name dropping for a second.
All right.
I was pen pals with Brandon Graham, the guy who now does Prophet, because he was doing a book called October Yin that was just like a very small press book, and I fucking loved it. And we would write back and forth. And
So
he was
this is why you love Prophet so much. You're biased.
yeah. And he was like, "What are you reading?" And I was like, "The Invisibles." And he's like, "I've never heard of it." And so I sent him that single issue, and he wrote back. He's like, "That was amazing." And because I was like, "Well, this was like one book he could just read by
Right.
itself." And yeah, so I got Brandon Graham to read The Invisibles.
Nice.
I don't know if he ever read the whole series or not.
Right. Well, that issue is probably, I think, the single best issue of any book ever.
Wow.
Yeah. And in this entire series, that's saying something.
Yeah.
But then after that, I think, is the origin of Lord Fanny, the Brazilian transvestite. Yeah. I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to reading all this, and I'm actually almost pissed off that I'm going to have to actually stop and read my next book pick.
Oh, wow.
That's
awesome.
Because
You could just pick volume 2.
There we go.
I won't complain. We switched the show. We're called Read Masters.
Will you be able to remember it?
Oh.
Or will it just be you say, it's Invisibles Night?
Yeah. That's close enough. Whatever.
Well, you didn't bring a CD. And we ran really long.
Yeah.
So let's just want to wrap this up now.
Sure.
Because I can tell you that I didn't do a goddamn thing in the past week.
I did nothing worth reporting.
Yeah.
I think I masturbated. Yeah, that was about it.
I slept for almost an entire day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun.
And yeah, because I got nothing else really to say about the Invisibles. That's just not me repeating myself over and over again.
Right.
Other than I want everybody to read this book.
Yeah, I do too. And I will order another copy for Mavericks for because I know half of our listenership, live in our backyard basically.
Right. And also you can't return this.
And I can't return this because this copy must have been, I swear this has probably been sitting on our shelf since, what year was this version printed?
It's got to be, I'd say, in the 2000s because it's got the Brian Boland cover.
The only date I see in here is 96. It says copyright 94, 95, 96.
Well, that's just the issues.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, I was reading the very first issue of the trade, and all of the contents of the book just slipped away from the cover. It just made this sound, and I was like, "What?" And it just fell out of the cover. So the cover's intact, and the inside is all intact in one chunk, but
they're not together.
They're separate pieces now.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That is yours forever.
Yep. I can just hot glue that and stick it back on the shelf. Done it before, I'll do it again. Sometimes I rip magic cards in half and just tape them back together. Put them out for sale.
If you would have picked a song for this episode, what were you going to pick?
Probably a Beatles song.
Okay.
No, I hadn't even thought about it.
Okay. Yeah, so then why don't you tell me what movie I'm going to be watching next episode?
I have
no idea.
No idea. I didn't think about that either. I just was thinking about The Invisible. No, I see no reason why two young men of our age should be deprived any longer of seeing Bob Goldthwait's God Bless America.
Sounds perfect.
Awesome.
Alright, yeah, I got no arguments with that.
Sweet.
Alright then, so let's go ahead and get on out of here then.
Let's do it.
Alrighty. Good night, everybody.
Good night, kids.
Read The Invisibles.
Twice.
Yes. Thank you for listening to Gutter Trash. You can subscribe to the show from guttertrash.net or from iTunes and leave us a review. Visit guttertrash.net for email information, links to our Facebook and Twitter pages, and for other podcasts and websites in the Gutter Trash Network. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.